The police station was quiet that morning, too quiet. Officers were sipping coffee, finishing paperwork, joking about weekend plans, when the front doors suddenly slammed open. At first, everyone thought it was a gust of wind. But then they saw him. A tiny German Shepherd puppy, dirty, trembling, and limping, ran inside, as if escaping death itself. He stopped in the center of the station, lifted his front paws in a desperate begging motion, and let out a heartbreaking whimper that echoed across the room. Tears streaked down his dusty fur. Something was terribly wrong. Officer Jenna knelt in front of him, extending a gentle hand. "Hey, buddy. What happened to you?" The puppy didn't bark. He didn't run. Instead, he pushed something toward her, a torn piece of fabric clenched tightly in his teeth, and when Jenna looked closer, her heart dropped, because that small piece of fabric revealed a truth so devastating. It would change the entire police department forever. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The police station was unusually calm that morning, wrapped in the kind of quiet that only happens after long nights of chaos. Officers sat scattered around the room, some flipping through reports, others sipping lukewarm coffee, and a few sharing tired jokes to lighten the mood. The hum of printers mixed softly with the occasional phone ring. Nothing suggested that something extraordinary was about to happen. Not yet. Then the front doors burst open. Every head snapped toward the entrance. At first, the officers saw nothing, just sunlight spilling across the polished floor. But then, from behind the doorframe, a tiny shape stumbled inside. A small German Shepherd puppy, no more than a few months old, limped across the lobby. His fur was matted with dirt, his ears drooped with exhaustion, and his little paws left faint, dusty prints behind him. But what silenced everyone was his eyes, tear-streaked, terrified, pleading. The puppy shuffled to the center of the room and suddenly lifted his front paws into the air, begging. A soft, broken whimper escaped his throat as if he was calling for help with the last bit of strength he had left. The room fell into stunned silence. Officer Jenna, known for her calm composure, felt her heart clench. She set her coffee aside and crouched down slowly. "Hey, buddy," she whispered. "What happened to you?" Her voice softened into something almost maternal. The puppy hesitated, then rushed into her arms. He buried his face into her uniform, shaking uncontrollably. Jenna felt his tiny body trembling like a leaf in a storm. His breathing was rapid, panicked. She cradled him gently, running her fingers over his fur, only to realize he was injured. A small cut on his hind leg, a bruise on his shoulder, and something else. Something strange, clenched tightly between his teeth, was a torn piece of fabric, dirty, ripped, and stained. Jenna carefully tugged it free. Before she could examine it, the puppy let out a desperate yelp and pushed her hand toward the door, as if begging her to follow. Officers exchanged confused glances. Something was wrong. Badly wrong. Jenna stood, the puppy still trembling in her arms. "Gear up," she ordered, her voice suddenly sharp. "This little guy isn't lost." She glanced at the torn fabric. "He's trying to tell us someone else needs help." Jenna carried the trembling puppy into the quiet exam room, beside the main lobby. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead as she placed him gently on the table. He didn't resist. He didn't bark. He simply sat there, small, fragile, and shaking, as if every ounce of courage he had left was being used just to stay upright. Jenna knelt so her eyes were level with his. "You're safe now," she whispered. "No one's going to hurt you here." The puppy blinked slowly, his lashes wet with dried tears. It was the kind of expression Jenna had seen only in trauma victims, fear mixed with desperate hope. She reached out carefully, letting him sniff her fingers. He leaned toward her touch, pressing his head against her palm. That single action sent a wave of emotion through Jenna's chest. "Good boy. You're a brave little guy, aren't you?" As she inspected him more closely, she noticed the injuries weren't random. The bruise on his shoulder was shaped like a boot print. The cut on his leg looked like it came from wire or metal. His fur was tangled with thorns. And around his neck. She paused, swallowing hard. A faint mark like someone had tried to drag him by a rope. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't an accident. This puppy had run for his life. She turned her attention to the torn fabric he had brought in. Holding it up to the light, she examined the fibers. It wasn't clothing. It was thicker, rougher, a backpack strap small child-sized. Her stomach dropped. "Oh no," she murmured. Before she could analyze it further, the puppy suddenly pawed at her sleeve and let out a high-pitched whine. Then another. Then he jumped down, ignoring the pain in his leg, and scrambled toward the door. Jenna followed. "Wait, slow down." He didn't slow. He ran straight to the lobby, skidding slightly on the polished floor before planting himself at the entrance and staring up at her with urgent, pleading eyes. He barked just once, but with purpose. Then he pressed his nose to the torn strap again. The officers gathered around. "What's he doing?" one of them asked. Jenna exhaled shakily. "He isn't showing us an injury." Her fingers tightened around the strap. "He's showing us a clue." The puppy whined louder, pacing in frantic little circles. Jenna knew that look. She'd seen it in Canine South. Trained to signal danger. This wasn't a random scared puppy. He was trying to lead them somewhere, and whatever he had escaped from, someone else hadn't. The puppy paced anxiously in front of the station doors, his tiny paws tapping rapidly against the tile floor. Every few seconds, he glanced back at Jenna as if begging her to hurry. His tail was low, his ears pinned back, not in fear anymore, but in urgency. He wasn't running from something now. He was trying to take them to something. Jenna grabbed her vest and clipped on her radio. "Everyone, gear up," she ordered. "This isn't just a stray puppy. He's trying to lead us somewhere." The puppy let out a sharp whimper, as if confirming her words. He nudged the door with his nose, then sat back on his hind legs, paws lifted again in that heartbreaking plea. Officers exchanged uneasy looks. None had ever seen a puppy behave like this. Jenna crouched down. "Okay, buddy," she said softly. "Show me." The puppy bolted the second the door opened. He stumbled slightly from his injuries but pushed through the pain, running down the steps and across the parking lot with surprising determination. Jenna followed close behind, her partner Officer Reyes jogging beside her. "He's fast for a hurt little guy," Reyes muttered, watching the pup weave between cars. They reached the edge of the lot where the trees thickened into a forest line. The puppy stopped suddenly and turned toward them, breathing heavily. Then, with a soft whine, he pawed at the ground right next to a set of small footprints leading into the woods. Jenna knelt down, inspecting the prints. "These are tiny," she whispered. "A child's. Maybe 7 or 8 years old." The puppy barked a short, desperate sound, then ran into the trees. Jenna and Reyes exchanged a stunned glance. "He's leading us straight to them," Reyes said. Branches whipped past as they followed the puppy deeper into the woods. He never hesitated, never slowed, even when his injured leg buckled. He simply whimpered, pushed forward, and kept going as if lives depended on it, because they did. Suddenly, the puppy skidded to a stop. He lowered himself to the ground and whimpered low, terrified. Heartbroken. Jenna caught up and froze. The forest floor ahead was disturbed. Broken branches, drag marks, drops of blood, and lying beside a tree trunk, the other half of the torn backpack strap. Jenna's breath hitched. This puppy wasn't lost. He was leading them to someone who desperately needed help. Jenna's pulse quickened as she stared at the torn backpack strap lying in the dirt. Every instinct in her body screamed that time was slipping away. The puppy nudged the strap with his nose, letting out a trembling whine that seemed to echo through the trees. Reyes knelt down beside her, examining the disturbed earth. "Drag marks. Small ones," he muttered. "Whoever took this kid didn't carry them far, they dragged them." Jenna swallowed hard. "Then they're on foot. And probably not too far ahead." The puppy suddenly darted forward again, limping but pushing himself with fierce determination. Jenna stood instantly. "Go, stay with him," she shouted. Reyes radioed dispatch as they ran deeper into the forest. "Unit 42 requesting immediate backup at Creekside Woods," he said breathlessly. "Possible child abduction. Following active trail." The deeper they went, the darker the forest became. Tall trees blocked out the sunlight, and the temperature dropped into a cold, damp chill. Leaves crunched under their boots, branches snapped under the puppy's paws. Every sound felt amplified, urgent. The puppy stopped again at a shallow stream, sniffing the ground intensely. He pawed at the mud, leaving tiny prints beside a much larger one. Jenna crouched. "Footprints. Adult male," she whispered. "Fresh." The puppy whimpered, then barked sharply, a sound filled with panic and insistence, and he took off again. "Go, go, go," Jenna urged as they followed him up a steep incline. Her legs burned, her breath came fast, but the puppy didn't stop. He climbed over fallen logs, squeezed through branches, slipped on rocks, but he never turned back. Never slowed unless he needed to confirm the trail. Reyes glanced at Jenna. "This little guy's not guessing," he said between breaths. "He knows where he's going." "I think he saw everything," Jenna replied grimly. "I think he tried to protect the kid." Minutes later, they burst into a clearing. The puppy skidded to a halt, then crouched low, tail tucked, ears back. A terrified whimper escaped him. Jenna's eyes swept the area. Torn fabric caught on branches. A small water bottle. A shoe. And dozens of footprints circling the clearing, some fresh, some smudged. The signs were unmistakable. Someone had struggled here. Recently. Reyes lifted the shoe. "It belongs to a child," he said quietly. Jenna's heart dropped. The puppy let out a trembling howl, a mixture of fear, grief, and urgency. He nudged the ground, then stared at Jenna, begging her to keep going. They were close, too close, and whoever had taken the child was still moving fast. Jenna crouched in the clearing, her fingers trembling as she lifted the small shoe from the dirt. It was tiny pink with a worn cartoon sticker peeling off the side. The kind a little girl would wear. The kind a parent would spend hours searching for if it ever went missing. Jenna's stomach twisted. "This child is young," she whispered. "Really young." The puppy stepped closer, placing his paw gently on the shoe, as if confirming it belonged to someone he loved. His little body began shaking again. Not from fear, but from heartbreak. Reyes scanned the area. "Look at this," he said, pointing to more footprints, small ones, scattered across the dirt. Some were deep, others faint, as if the child had stumbled. Drag marks continued toward a narrow path leading deeper into the woods. "She tried to fight," Reyes murmured. "Tried to run." Jenna swallowed hard. "And this puppy, he stayed with her." The puppy whimpered loudly and began circling frantically, sniffing the ground with increasing panic. He followed the drag marks a few feet, then stopped at a fallen tree. Something glinted beneath it. Jenna rushed over and gently moved away broken branches. Her breath caught. A tiny bracelet, pink beads, stretched and cracked, was tangled in the bark. The puppy nudged it, then let out the softest, saddest cry Jenna had ever heard. He lowered his head and pressed his nose against the bracelet, refusing to look away. "He knows her," Jenna whispered. He's not just leading us to a stranger. Reyes nodded grimly. This kid. She's someone he loves. Someone he tried to protect. A quiet moment passed. Then the puppy's ears shot up. He spun toward the northern trail, barking sharply twice, urgent and loud. His tail stiffened. His body tensed. He sensed something. Jenna stood instantly. He's telling us the trail continues. The puppy barked again, limping toward the path. Looking back at them repeatedly to make sure they were following, Jenna tightened her vest. All right, little hero, she whispered. Voice steady but heart pounding, lead the way. Because now it wasn't just about finding a missing child, that it was about honoring the bravery of a puppy who refused to give up on her. Hours earlier, before the puppy burst into the police station, the forest had been peaceful. Birds chirped softly. Sunlight filtered through the branches. And a little girl named Maya, no older than 7, played near a creek with her German Shepherd puppy, Scout. He was tiny, clumsy, forever tripping over his own paws, but he never let Maya out of his sight. She giggled as she tossed a pink ball, and Scout, ears too big for his head, scrambled after it with adorable determination, but peace shattered in seconds. A twig snapped. Maya froze. 2 men stepped out from behind the tree's rough, intimidating, their eyes cold. One of them grabbed Maya's wrist before she could scream. The other reached for Scout. Maya cried out, "No, let go." Scout lunged, teeth bared. Barking with all the courage his small body could muster, the man kicked him hard. Scout yelped, tumbling across the dirt. Maya screamed his name, fighting to break free, but the men were stronger. They dragged her toward the deeper woods while she clawed at the ground, her shoe slipping off in the struggle. Her bracelet snagged on a branch, snapping as she was pulled away. Scout struggled to stand, limping, desperately trying to run after her, but every step was agony. Still, he followed. He stumbled through thorns, leaves sticking to his fur, pain shooting up his injured leg. He saw Maya being forced along the trail and barked desperately, trying to scare the men off, but they only laughed. "Stupid dog," one muttered, throwing a rock that struck Scout's shoulder. He collapsed, then pushed himself up again. He wouldn't stop. He couldn't stop. When they reached the clearing, Maya fought harder. One man lost patience and yanked her so roughly she fell. She cried for help again and again, her voice breaking. Scout ran toward her with everything he had left, but another kick sent him crashing into a tree trunk. The world blurred. Maya's screams grew faint as the men dragged her away. Scout crawled, dizzy, disoriented. He pressed his nose to the ground, trying to follow her scent. He found her shoe, her bracelet, the strap from her backpack. Each discovery pushed him forward. Hours passed. Scout grew weaker. His paws bled. His throat burned. He was losing strength, losing hope. Then through the trees, he saw something. A road, cars, buildings, a police station. Using the last of his strength, Scout limped toward the doors and shoved them open. He couldn't speak. He couldn't explain. But he could beg, and he did, for Maya. For help, for someone to save the girl he loved more than anything. He had made it. Now the officers had to do the rest. The forest grew darker as Jenna, Reyes, and the tiny injured puppy pushed deeper into the unknown. Trees towered over them like silent giants, and the thick canopy swallowed the sunlight whole. Everything felt colder here, too quiet, too still. Scout limped ahead, nose glued to the ground, letting out small, frantic whines every few seconds, as if urging them to move faster. His little paws were trembling, but he refused to stop. Jenna checked her watch anxiously. Maya had been missing for hours. The deeper they went, the more dangerous the terrain became, and the more likely the kidnappers were gaining distance. "We're running out of time," she muttered. Reyes radioed back to dispatch again. voice tight. No visual yet. Continuing north. Send the K9 backup team immediately. The wind shifted, carrying a smell that made Scout freeze. He lifted his head sharply, ears perked. Then he sprinted, ignoring his limp, as fast as his tiny body could carry him. Jenna didn't hesitate. Go, stay with him, she shouted, ducking under branches and leaping over fallen logs. Scout darted through the trees, weaving between roots and rocks like a dog who knew the path by heart. Ahead, the forest opened into a narrow ravine. The earth was disturbed, fresh drag marks carved into the dirt, leading toward a cluster of boulders. Jenna knelt down, her chest tightening. They came through here recently. Very recently. Scout sniffed the ground aggressively, then barked twice sharp, high. Urgent. He jumped onto a rock and stared ahead. Jenna followed his gaze. A torn piece of fabric fluttered on a branch, the same color as the backpack strap in her pocket. Reyes approached slowly, lifting it with gloved fingers. This is hers, he said softly. Scout let out a whine so heartbroken it made Jenna's chest ache. Suddenly, a faint sound drifted through the trees. A scream. Small, weak, terrified. Scout's head snapped toward the sound. He barked with a fury Jenna had never heard from such a tiny dog, then bolted into the trees again, dragging his injured leg but refusing to slow for even a second. Jenna's adrenaline surged. That's her voice. Move! Branches whipped past them as they chased Scout through the ravine. The scream came again, louder this time, filled with terror. Maya was alive, but she wasn't safe, and they were running out of time. Scout burst out of the ravine like a shot of lightning, his tiny paws slipping on loose soil as he scrambled toward the sound of Maya's scream. Jenna and Reyes sprinted behind him, adrenaline burning through their veins. Branches whipped across Jenna's arms, but she didn't feel a thing. All she could hear was Maya's terrified voice echoing through the trees and Scout's frantic barks guiding them closer. They reached a clearing and froze. Men stood near an abandoned hunting shack. One held Maya by the arm, gripping her so tightly she whimpered in pain. The other was pacing angrily, shouting about the dog escaping and needing to leave before the cops showed up. Maya's face was streaked with dirt and tears. Her little body trembled. Scout snarled, a sound far too fierce for such a small puppy. He didn't hesitate. He charged toward Maya, teeth bared, barking with desperate fury. One man turned. Oh, you again? He sneered. Thought we kicked you dead. He raised his foot. Scout lunged first. His tiny jaws clamped onto the man's pant leg, shaking with all his strength. The attacker stumbled backward, swearing. Get this mutt off me. Jenna sprang from the trees. Police. Hands where I can see them, she shouted, weapon drawn. Reyes flanked her, aiming at the second man. Step away from the girl now. The man holding Maya panicked. He shoved her aside and bolted toward the shack. Reyes chased after him, shouting warnings. Jenna rushed forward and scooped Maya into her arms. You're safe. I've got you. Maya sobbed into her shoulder, gripping her tightly. The other attacker tried to shake Scout off, but the little puppy refused to let go, teeth clenched, growling like a true protector. Jenna commanded, Scout, drop. He obeyed instantly, releasing the man just as backup officers broke through the trees. Within seconds, both men were tackled to the ground, handcuffed, and dragged away. Maya lifted her head, still crying. Scout, you came back for me. Jenna placed Maya on the ground. Scout limped toward her, tail wagging weakly. Maya wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. My brave boy. You saved me. The officers watched the emotional reunion with stunned silence. A tiny puppy injured. Exhausted, Herding had fought harder than grown men to protect the little girl he loved. And in that forest clearing, everyone knew the same truth. Scout wasn't just a puppy, he was a hero. The forest clearing slowly fell silent as the last pair of handcuffs clicked shut. Officers escorted the kidnappers away, their protests drowned out by the hum of incoming backup units. But Jenna wasn't focused on any of that. Her eyes stayed locked on Maya, tiny, trembling, wrapped around Scout as if letting him go would make the nightmare return. Scout whimpered softly, pressing his nose into her cheek, his tail wagging with a tired, weak rhythm. Despite everything, he looked relieved. Jenna knelt beside them. "Maya," she whispered gently, "you're safe now. We've got you." Maya lifted her tear-streaked face. "Scout saved me," she said, voice cracking. "He chased them, even when they hurt him." She hugged him tighter, and Scout, though exhausted, leaned into her embrace, letting out a quiet huff of contentment. Reyes approached with a small blanket. He knelt and wrapped it around Maya's shoulders. "You were very brave," he said softly. But Maya shook her head and pointed to Scout. "He's the brave one," she whispered. "He came all the way to find help." For me, Jenna felt her throat tighten. She reached out and stroked Scout's head, feeling the tiny tremors running through his body. "You're a hero, little guy," she murmured. Scout's eyes fluttered. He nuzzled Maya, then Jenna, as if thanking them both. An officer nearby called out, "Ambulance is 3 minutes out." Another added, "We've got the perimeter secured." But the world around Maya and Scout had shrunk into something small and intimate. Maya cupped Scout's face in both hands. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. Scout licked her chin, his tail tapping the ground once. Then twice, his way of saying, "I would never leave you." Jenna helped Maya stand, keeping one protective arm around her while the other supported Scout. "Let's get both of you checked out," Jenna said. "He needs a vet, and you need to rest." As they walked toward the clearing's edge, Scout kept glancing up at Maya, making sure she was still there, still safe. Maya leaned her head against Jenna's side, but reached down to hold Scout's paw. He squeezed gently, just like he had in the police station, the moment the paramedics arrived. They paused in awe. It wasn't just a reunion. It was pure, undeniable love between a little girl and the puppy who refused to let her die. And everyone who witnessed it felt their heart break and heal at the same time. The sun was dipping behind the tree line by the time Maya and Scout were brought to the hospital. Paramedics moved swiftly, but gently, one team carrying Maya inside, while another wrapped Scout in warm blankets, placing him on a small stretcher designed for canine units. Even through the exhaustion, Maya refused to let go of his paw. "He comes with me," she insisted softly, voice trembling. The paramedic nodded, moved by the sight. "Don't worry, sweetheart. He's staying right by your side." Inside, doctors checked Maya for bruises, dehydration, and shock. Meanwhile, Scout lay on a padded table in the next room, whimpering softly as the vet cleaned his cuts and examined his bruised ribs. The moment the vet finished bandaging him, Scout tried to jump down, limping toward the door, as if desperate to return to Maya. "Easy, little hero," the vet whispered, lifting him gently. "She's safe. You did your job." When Scout was finally carried into Maya's room, she brightened instantly. "Scout!" she cried, reaching out with trembling arms. Scout wriggled free the moment he touched the bed, curling into her side with a deep, content sigh. Tears filled Jenna's eyes as she watched from the doorway. She had seen many reunions, but nothing like this, nothing so pure. Moments later, the police chief arrived, his usually stern face softened with emotion. "Officers told me everything," he said, kneeling beside Maya's bed. "You're a very brave girl." Maya shook her head, pointing at Scout. "He's the brave one. He saved me." The chief smiled and placed a small metal lightweight and safe on Scout's blanket. "Then this is for him," he said. "For bravery, loyalty, and saving a life." Scout sniffed the metal before nudging it toward Maya, as if saying, "We did it together." Jenna stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "Once you're better, we'll help you both find a safe home," she promised. "You're not alone anymore." Maya's eyes softened. "Can Scout stay with me? Forever?" The chief exchanged a glance with Jenna, both smiling. "If that's what you want," Jenna said softly, "then yes. Forever." Scout let out a tiny bark, weak, but full of joy. And for the first time since the nightmare began, Maya fell asleep with a smile, knowing she had her hero beside her. And Scout knew he had finally found his family.